Good morning, good Monday morning. It is foggy and pretty gnarly looking out here. Let's see if I can flip this. I don't think I can. All right, but yeah, it's pretty gnarly out here. Very foggy, but hey, let's get in on it. So what we're talking about in our series, we're talking about Old Testament heroes. We're talking about people in the Old Testament, probably people you've heard of: Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Aaron, David, Solomon, those guys. And we're talking about them because all too often we read their stories and we're like, oh, if I be like this person, this is how things will turn out for me. But most of the time, the Bible's not telling us the stories of these people to give us. They're not saying it primarily to give us a role model to be as, but it is a picture of Jesus and what he would come to do for those who are reading it in the Old Testament, and what he did for us, for those of us who read it now. So today we're actually going to talk about Moses. Story of Moses, you probably know, but Moses was born as a slave in Egypt. But the rule of Egypt at that time was that slaves couldn't have kids, so Moses' mom had to hide him, and then, in an effort to just hope that he would survive, puts him in a basket in the river. And who happens to find this baby but Pharaoh's daughter? And so he is raised as an Egyptian, grows up as an Egyptian in a royal house, sees a slave being beaten, in a fit of anger, kills the person that was beating the slave, and then this murderer runs away. While running away, he becomes a sheep herder, gets married, has kids, and God shows up to him in this burning bush and says, hey, go deliver my people. And so Moses does that. And there's the whole 10 plagues and him going to Egypt, and Pharaoh, let my people go, God says. Situation, Pharaoh finally gives in after a whole lot of bad things happen to Egypt, and they leave. And then Moses leads the people, Red Sea, deserts, no water, no food, God providing, God being gracious, God giving the law, God giving them a land that would be their own. And yet they didn't trust God for that, so they ended up wandering around the wilderness for 40 years. And that's obviously a very short recap of Moses' life. Moses' story takes up like 4 books of our Bible almost. So it's worth a read. But here's the thing. Here's what I want us to see. Is Moses is a picture of Jesus in a faithful servant whose life for God, A, wasn't easy at all, and B, wasn't appreciated by the people he was serving. Moses delivers a people out of Israel, out of slavery in Egypt. And you know how many times these people grumble and complain about the God who A, delivered them, and B, the leader that God had given them in Moses. And yet Moses was faithful and selfless in serving these people before God, and pleading before God multiple times that he would have mercy and grace. Yes, God, you delivered them. And yes, they're nagging. And yes, they say that they hate you. And yes, they're rebelling against you to worship a golden calf. But please do not kill them. Please do not smite them. Please show them love. Please show them mercy. And that's the role we see Jesus take. Jesus came to deliver us from our bondage of sin, and we didn't appreciate that. We ran from that. We didn't want him. We didn't want what God was doing. We thought God was mean and vindictive, and we were better off slaves in what we were. And yet God still loved and cared for us. He's our Savior and a good leader that we don't appreciate. Love you guys.